Hey guys, it's Becky with Design Bundles, and today I'm here to talk to you about heat transfer vinyl. Now, HTV is not new, but if you're a beginner, or maybe even if you're not, we have a really great comparison. We are going to show you the 6 most common types of heat transfer vinyl that you're going to run across. Now, we will talk to you about cut settings for both the Silhouette and the Cricut, and heat press settings, and we will heat press them all on a little sample sheet for you so you can see them more or less, we'll say, in real life. So let's go ahead and jump over and get started. Okay, so what I have here is I have combined a whole bunch of different heat transfer vinyl on here so that I could cut them and compare them for you. Now, this is the 6 most common types. Of course, there are always exceptions and there's always additions to this list, but we have smooth, glitter, holographic, flock, metallic, and pattern. Now, again, there's going to be a lot of different brands who offer, for example, there's a puffy vinyl that puffs up when you apply heat to it, and there are different patterns that have the masking, but for the most part, as a beginner, these are the most common types that you're going to run into. Now, first and foremost, I know that this can be misleading that I put all of these on here to cut at one time, but just know that for the most part, these each require their own cut settings, their own heat settings, okay? In addition to that, pattern also requires a masking, such as this. Now, again, we will talk about that when the time comes, but I'm just giving you a brief overview. And then also, I want to let you in on a hack. Now, sometimes the weeding lines can be difficult, especially when you're dealing with light colors and dark colors. And what I want to show you, now you can use any type of powder that you have at your house. Baby powder works well, or I've heard of some people using cocoa powder. Of course, you don't want to contaminate your cocoa powder, but just using that as an example, I actually, in my crafting stash, I have these little mica powders. But let me show you, if you have a hard time finding your weeding lines, you can actually dip your finger in this powder and rub it. And I don't know if you can see or not. Let me get up closer. Can you see the difference between where the weeding line is catching that powder? Hopefully you can. And what that'll do is it will give you a very clear picture of what you need to weed and what you don't. So that is my HTV hack of the day. And hopefully it will help you. Let's see how the dark color looks on the white. I find white to be especially difficult. Now, one question that a lot of people ask: does the powder affect the heat transfer vinyl? And my answer is no. I have not had this negatively affect any of my heat transfer vinyl projects. But you also know I'm not pouring it on there. I'm literally using the smallest amount possible. So of course you can do this with any type of HTV. Except I do not recommend doing it for patterns. And the reason I don't recommend doing it for patterns is that I don't want the powder on the front side of my pattern. You can see that these are all cut into the back. And let's talk about that also. Heat transfer vinyl, here I'll go ahead and remove this one to show you as an example. Heat transfer vinyl, typically speaking, is cut on the back side. What that means is that this is considered your front side. This is your glossy side. It has a nice glossy feel to it. And this is because it has a carrier sheet. Okay. This is considered your back, and it'll still be smooth, but it almost has a little bit of a gummy texture. And if you're ever in doubt, you can simply weed up one corner and you'll see it either has a clear side or a paper side. If you peel back a corner and there's paper, then it's either going to be pattern or it's going to be adhesive, okay? So keep that in mind. Most HTV will have a built-in carrier sheet. So before I go too far, let's talk about cut settings. This is smooth heat transfer vinyl. This is where I suggest for you to start as a beginner. And this is also the cheapest type of HTV that you will cut. is going to be the most common. You can get it in a nice matte finish, or you can get it in almost like a semi-gloss, just depending on what brand you choose. As for cut settings, both Silhouette and Cricut have built-in cut settings. On the Silhouette, it will say Heat Transfer Vinyl Smooth, and on the Cricut, it will say, I believe, Everyday Iron On. Okay, now for the most part, those defaults are going to be just fine. If you do a test cut and you find that whatever brand you choose does not in fact cut very well, well then you can bump your blade up a notch and do another test cut. Okay, if you get a good test cut, then weeding heat transfer vinyl is very, very easy. You literally hold on to one side and pull. You don't have to worry that it's going to stick back down and ruin your design. The only thing you have to worry about is if you receive that good cut or not. So now, once you have the outside, you can come in. This is where those weed lines are going to come into play. And you can snag out the insides of these letters. Now, heat transfer vinyl also, it can be applied on anything that can withstand the heat. There we go, smooth. Now, when we talk about anything that can withstand the heat, we are talking about, I'm not going to get to glitter just yet, but we're talking about wood, we're talking about glass, somebody put it on their cabinets in their kitchen. It's just a lot of fun things that you can do. All right, this is metallic. Now, sometimes it'll look like this. It's a brushed metallic. Sometimes it will look like a chrome metallic. Either way, metallic is probably my favorite heat transfer vinyl to weed and to cut. It handles detail exceptionally well. And smooth, most of the time smooth does also. So if you're working with designs that have a lot of detail, you're going to want to stick with one of these. So now again, I got a really good cut. Just hold on to one side and weed the other. Okay, so that's metallic. The reason I chose this second is because I also cut this on heat transfer vinyl smooth. Okay, so I don't cut it on any special settings. Heat transfer vinyl smooth works very well for metallic, in my opinion. Okay, now we are going to talk about these two in particular. Glitter and flocked. You can cut these on the same settings. Now, there are presets in both Silhouette Studio and there's kind of a preset in Cricut. In Silhouette Studio, it will say heat transfer glitter. Okay, now it'll also say heat transfer flocked. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. For glitter, I also use heat transfer flocked. There's not that much of a difference in between the two, and I just find that I get a much better cut, even on glitter, when I use the heat transfer flocked. Now you'll notice when you weed the glitter, you do have residual glitter that stays on your carrier sheet. You do not have to worry about that glitter unless you are layering on top of smooth. If you're layering this on top of smooth, you may see a little bit of the residual glitter, but it's not going to be a lot. Now, flocked, you may be asking, what in the world is flocked HTV? Flocked HTV is really fun around Easter because you can make these really awesome fuzzy bunnies. I use it around Halloween so I can make fuzzy spiders. But basically, it is a type of heat transfer vinyl that has a velvety feel to it, okay? So it's really fun. I enjoy using it in certain instances. It's not for all projects, obviously, but it cuts and weeds well, very similar to the glitter, as long as I'm not trying to cut a lot of detail. Now, holographic is a little bit special. Holographic does not have a preset in Silhouette Studio or in Cricut. Oh, you know what? Let me back up. When I say that there's kind of a preset for these in Cricut Design Space, that's because you're still going to choose Everyday Iron On, but you are going to choose more for your pressure, okay? Everyday Iron On, more pressure. Now, holographic, like I said, it does not have a preset in either software for default cut settings. In Cricut, you guys are lucky. You're going to go ahead and cut it on light cardstock. And then in Silhouette Studio, you could probably get away with the cardstock setting also. But what you're actually going to do is bump your blade up to a 3 and put your pressure on a 14. Speed doesn't really matter as much, but doing that blade of a 3 and doing the pressure at 14, that's going to be your starting place. And if you don't get a very good cut, then of course you can increase your blade or increase your pressure, or both. Sometimes you need both. So I just can't stress enough, especially when you're using a more expensive or a limited material. Say you only have one sheet left. Absolutely, please do not skip doing your test cut. So I really like weeding holographic. It cuts and weeds really good. The only thing that I caution you on is that sometimes it will rip. So you'll get started and the part that you're weeding will start to rip off. It doesn't actually affect your design as long as you got a good cut. So now you notice all of these are weeded and all of these I'm putting down and they're all cut in reverse. Okay, so my last one here is this pattern. So what we're going to do is, it is very hard in my opinion to see the weed lines, or the cut lines rather. So I'm just going to go ahead. I try to only cut my pattern to the size that I need. So that way whenever I weed it, I'm not wasting a whole lot of extra. And then I will go in and weed out the inside of my letters. Now, most patterns, you can go ahead and also cut those on smooth heat transfer vinyl. The reason that I did not include these in with the smooth heat transfer vinyl is that you are not going to mirror your design. Okay, you are going to think of pattern heat transfer vinyl more like you would an adhesive vinyl decal. All right, you are going to cut it, you are going to weed it, and then you are going to use this masking and think of it like a heat safe transfer tape. Okay, so after I cut and weed, then I'm going to remove this transfer tape off of the backing, apply it to my pattern. Now I need to burnish it, and if all goes well, I'll be able to pick this up. Now they do make a glitter pattern heat transfer vinyl, and I just want to say that I don't recommend it for beginners. Not because you guys don't get to be part of the cool club, I would totally invite you, but it's actually a really big pain to try to get it to stick to the masking, okay? All right, so I did mess this up just a little bit. Luckily, Pattern HTV is very forgiving in terms of heat transfer vinyl, and I can smooth it back into place. There we go, not too bad. Now, let's talk about heat settings. I have this little canvas that we're going to use, and what we can do is just arrange how we want these to go, and we can go ahead and put these on here. Now, we can actually press these all at once if we wanted to, if they did not overlap. All right, for the most part, these will all have the same basic heat settings. Now, a lot of your smooth is going to be somewhere between 305 and 320. A lot of times your flocked, glitter, and holographic, those are going to be 320. And then same with your pattern, it's going to be about the same as your smooth. Now, holographic and metallic, sometimes flock, and sometimes glitter. Those are the ones you have to worry about can be a cold peel. Now, what does that mean? That means that your smooth and your patterns, and like I said, sometimes your glitter and flocked, those are going to be hot peels. So when you press them, you get to peel the carrier sheet right off. Definitely the holographic and the metallic, those are cold peel. That means that you're going to wait for them to be completely cool, and then you're going to remove the carrier sheet. And then with flock and glitter, I will say most of the time they are going to be hot to warm peel. But if they start being stubborn, then you may just want to wait for it to cool, and then you can peel it off. So a couple other things that you want to worry about is layering. You can layer smooth on top of most other smooth. Okay, you can also layer anything here on top of smooth. You cannot layer anything on top of glitter, flocked, or metallic, or holographic. Now, I have seen people layer glitter on top of glitter, and that seems to hold up okay. I have not seen any layering with flocked. Metallic, it's just not recommended. I have not personally tried it. I know that holographic does not accept layering at all. It says, no sir, we are not playing that game with you. And then patterns, I think you can, but again, it's not recommended. So just be careful. It may be a situation where you want to subtract or slice out your design so that they fit together like a puzzle instead of layering. Now, where can you find the information to make sure you are using this HTV properly? Your best bet is going to be either the manufacturer website or the website where you purchase the HTV from. Either one of those places should have the exact instructions for cutting, pressing, and layering what can and cannot be layered. All right, now when you are pressing more than one heat transfer vinyl at a time, you want to make sure that, again, none of these overlap. So we'll just press them one by one. You're going to want to use a Teflon sheet, and I'm going to cover this up. And because I know I'm pressing other, I am just going to press this for about 2 or 3 seconds. Now, remember I said that this was a cold peel, so we're going to wait for this to cool. So I can actually go ahead and, let's see, I can lay my pattern down here, because this is definitely going to be a lot of presses for each one of these. My smooth will overlap, but my glitter does not. So I can lay these down. Well, I'll wait. I will wait. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm excited, but I am going to go ahead and press the pattern. Now, heat transfer vinyl is all about pressure. I mean, the heat matters too, but a lot of times when you have a situation where the heat transfer vinyl won't stick or it comes off in the washing machine, then it's going to be a situation, see that hot peel? It's going to be a situation where not enough pressure was applied. That's because a lot of beginners, it's not you guys' fault, but a lot of you guys are using a home iron. And not that that's, I don't want to say the word problem. Problem is misleading. It's not a problem to use a home iron, but what that means is that you likely are not getting enough pressure. So if you're using a home iron and you're just starting out with HTV, then what you want to do is get your project as low as possible on a heat safe surface. So if that means that you need to get down on your tile floor or a bar stool or an end table, something where you can get a lot of body weight on top of your iron. All right, so let's also talk about the finish on these. So obviously the metallic is going to be shiny and the holographic is going to be shiny. But another thing is that a lot of times after you press the metallic, even if it started off as a chrome, a lot of times it will take on a brushed metal look. So just be prepared for that. And the metallic, a lot of times those are smooth. Like this is smooth, the pattern's smooth, and they will melt into the fabric of your shirt. Whereas the holographic is very unforgiving. It's a very stiff material. And, you know, it's very pretty. I love to use it. It cuts good, weeds good. But it's just something you need to be prepared for. And then the glitter and the flocked are kind of an in-between. Not that they are able to melt into your shirt because they're thicker. So you are going to have to just deal with feeling that on your fabric. But they're more flexible. That's what I'm trying to say. They are more flexible. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to mess those up. I get impatient doing these videos. I'm an impatient crafter. A lot of times too, you can pick up your substrate as long as it's not hot and fan it. Now, if something happens and you go to peel this up and it's just not working, you can cover your design up again and press again, because it may have been a situation where you just didn't get enough pressure. If you are using a heat press, okay, let's talk about that. First time heat press users, you will do the dollar bill test. What that means is you will take we say a dollar bill, but you can also do it with a piece of paper, and you want to tighten down the pressure on your heat press and close that piece of paper inside. And if you can yank on that piece of paper and it still comes out, then you need to tighten down your pressure some more. Unless you buy a higher end heat press that takes care of the pressure for you, there's usually a knob on the top that you're going to crank down. Alrighty, so I knew my glitter was going to overlap with the smooth, so I'm just going to let it overlap. And then it's going to be the same thing with the flocked. We'll put the flocked on top of the metallic. I know I just got done telling you that you could not layer the metallic, but since this is just a project and not a t-shirt, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So we will press these two together. And like I said, you don't have to press these long, because when you're pressing multiple types of heat transfer vinyl, you're gonna be pressing over and over and over. And what that means is you will wait until your final layer and then press for the full 15 seconds. And let's give this a minute. Let's let the metallic cool, and then we will come back and peel that off so that I can stop trying to peel it prematurely. Okay, so I think it's cool. Let's give this one last try. All right, time for the flocked. Last but not least, right? All right, so this is our last press. So now is when we will press for the full 15 seconds. That will make sure that all of our layers are good and pressed down so that they will fully adhere to our canvas. So hopefully you guys can see all the fun we had with this HTV. Definitely a lot of different textures. And for the most part, they all work about the same. It's just that each type has its own little quirk. So I certainly had a lot of fun making this for you guys. So let's go ahead and sum it up. So, how'd you like our little project? Now, I'm not saying that everybody should go out and make a sign like this, because, you know, really, especially once you get used to it, you won't necessarily need the reminder. But this was really neat to make, and it was neat to see all of the different types of HTV side by side. And if you happen to have a lot of customers in person, then this is a great way to show them the difference between all the different types of heat transfer vinyl that are available. So hopefully you enjoyed the video today, and hopefully we helped you along. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, make sure you leave those below. I do come back and personally check in with you. And make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we always have a lot of great ideas planned for you right around the corner. So we will see you next time.